Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you follow the digital asset space at all, you already know Tron is an absolute heavy hitter. But when I sat down and looked at the actual scale and the mechanics of this network as it stands right now in 2026, I was honestly blown away. It's like a giant puzzle. So let's look under the hood together and discover exactly how this massive engine really operates.
Let's dive right into this absolutely jaw-dropping figure. $84.54 billion in TRC20 USDT. Just to put that into perspective for a second, that is roughly the GDP of entire countries moving entirely on this one single network. It commands nearly two-thirds of Tether's global circulating supply and velocity. So we aren't just talking about a popular blockchain here. It is an absolute behemoth of digital liquidity.
Okay. Section 1. The Value Settlement Monolith.
Now you might be wondering, how does Tron handle that immense volume without just buckling? Well, we have to look at its scale. While the rest of the industry basically assumed everyone was going to migrate over to Layer 2 rollups, Tron completely defied those expectations. It's processing an average of over 10 million transactions every single day, and recently it hit an all-time high of 126 transactions per second. It has absolutely cemented itself as the ultimate base layer rail for high-frequency value transfers.
Moving right along to Section 2, Network Architecture and Consensus. So, who is actually running this incredibly fast network? Tron operates on a delegated proof-of-stake model, and it's governed by just 27 super representatives, or SRs, who produce blocks every 3 seconds. Now, this design creates incredible speed and predictability, for sure, but it also heavily centralizes protocol influence. I mean, these 27 active seats are dominated by major corporate entities, institutional partners like Google Cloud, and massive centralized exchanges like Binance, OKX, and HTX.
To stay fiercely competitive, early 2026 brought us a massive, mandatory upgrade. It's codenamed Democritus. Now, without getting too bogged down in the code here, they essentially rewired Tron's virtual machine to perfectly mimic Ethereum's latest standards, specifically around the EIP 6780 restrictions. For developers, this is huge. The friction is practically gone. They can virtually copy and paste their cross-chain smart contracts right onto Tron with total ease.
Right around the same time, Tron made a massive financial pivot toward the future. They expanded their AI core infrastructure fund from a very respectable $100 million to an astonishing $1 billion. Yep, $1 billion. They're actively positioning Tron to be the go-to financial rail for the agentic economy. Actually, think of it this way. When autonomous AI agents need to instantly pay each other for data or services, they are going to be able to do it efficiently right here.
All right, Section 3, the deflationary resource matrix. But how in the world does Tron actually pay for all this compute power without the token's price going completely crazy? Well, it brilliantly uses a dual resource model. Think of bandwidth as paying for a bus ticket. You use it for standard, simple TRX transfers. Energy, on the other hand, is like hiring a moving truck. It's required for the heavy lifting, things like executing complex smart contracts and moving all that TRC20 USDT. This setup neatly decouples network resource consumption from volatile market pricing. Now, this whole economic structure was really stress-tested by proposal number 104. They slashed the energy unit price by more than a half, dropping it from 210 Sun all the way down to 100 Sun. And while this initially caused network revenue to drop from historic highs of nearly $980 million down to about $610 million, the cheaper fees triggered this massive elasticity effect. Transactions completely skyrocketed, which successfully stabilized the network's annualized revenue run rate at over $2.4 billion. For the average token holder, this creates a pretty fascinating value loop. Users freeze their TRX tokens to generate the bandwidth and energy we were just talking about. In return, they receive Tron power at a 1-to-1 ratio, which they then use to vote for those 27 super representatives. And because those SRs distribute the vast majority of their block rewards right back to the voters, users earn a highly stable 4.0 to 5.0% real staking APR. And here is where Tron's aggressively deflationary nature really kicks into high gear. If a user doesn't have enough frozen energy for a transaction, the protocol just burns liquid TRX directly from their wallet. Because stablecoin velocity is so incredibly high on this network, it is literally burning an average of 4.5 million TRX in resource fees every single day, while only minting about 2.3 million TRX in block rewards. They are quite literally incinerating more money than they create. Because of this strictly negative issuance, TRON is actively yanking roughly 2 million TRX right out of circulation every 24 hours. Starting 2026 at 86.5 billion TRX, this mechanical shrinking projects a year-end floor near 84.1 billion. It is mathematically designed for continuous, highly predictable scarcity.
Which brings us to Section 4, DeFi and Real-World Utility.
To understand what is fueling that massive burn rate, we really have to look at utility. Starting with the on-chain DeFi layer, this area boasts a staggering total value locked of $26 billion. It's dominated by capital efficiency titans like the Just Lend money market and the SunSwap automated market maker. On top of that, TRON's native decentralized stablecoin, USDD, saw its supply explode by 104% in early 2026, officially pushing it past the $1 billion threshold.
But honestly, the second layer is perhaps the most fascinating part of the whole shebang, the off-chain, peer-to-peer payment layer. In emerging markets that are facing crushing inflation, we're talking places like Argentina, Nigeria, and Turkey, everyday users are utilizing TRON to bypass traditional banking entirely. It acts as this rapid, safe haven bridge to US dollars for massive unbanked populations. Finally, Section 5, Institutional and Macro Risks. Now, we have to be objective here. This massive scale, it's paired with some very distinct systemic risks. On the positive side, sure, early 2026 saw the US SEC dismiss core claims against the TRON Foundation. But structurally, over 50% of the circulating TRX supply is concentrated within centralized exchanges and early participant wallets. Furthermore, institutions like the IMF are actively tracking fiat-to-crypto capital flight, and stringent global stablecoin legislations, like Europe's MiCA framework, are coming into full enforcement.
Because TRON relies so heavily on macroeconomically unstable jurisdictions for its transaction volume, it creates a really unique vulnerability. As the institutional reports point out, if synchronized global legislation restricts stablecoin gateways in those emerging markets, it could directly threaten the transaction velocity that keeps TRON's entire deflationary engine running in the first place.
So, that leaves us with this final, honestly pretty provocative question to chew on. TRON undeniably powers a multi-billion-dollar segment of global digital settlement every single day, providing non-speculative, real-world utility to millions of people. But as the regulatory net tightens globally, can its raw utility ultimately outpace the structural centralization and regulatory paradoxes at its very core? It is a fascinating balancing act to watch. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the mechanics behind our digital world.